We took part in Doon, the community took part on a grave inscription project in conjunction with Ballyhowrah, and John Tierney in the audience there was our consultant archaeologist. The graveyard is it's east of the village. The village is sort of a linear settlement, and there's a church on the site of the graveyard. We think it was a Protestant one, although it's not the Protestant church, came later. The memorials, of course, are facing east, in the traditional belief in the resurrection of the dead, that the dead would see the second coming of Christ. And, of course, clergy were traditionally buried then facing westwards. We brought out a book in 2010, and we numbered the rows like in an A to Z sequence, but we ran into problems in that we had more rows than there was letters of the alphabet. So we ended up, it was a bit confusing, and we also missed some half rows. The rows aren't clearly defined. When John Tierney came along, then he just numbered the graves sequentially, 1 to 826, which was a lot simpler. And we also went back over and included our omissions in the second book. And I'll just pass it around because the really important thing about the second book was that John Tierney did a sketch map of the graveyard. So if you just like, somebody might like to have a quick look at that as it's going around. The memorials, most of them would seem to date from about the mid-18th century. And there's the few that we couldn't read and that we still maybe need to go back over and have another go at, but most of them were pretty easy to read and in good condition. We think that the earliest burial there was Cornelius Harrigan of Glengar, Townland. He died in 1773 and he was born in 1700. On the Hayes, there's a single chest tomb there, and Mary Hayes died 1773 again, and she was aged only 20. There's also one family is noted for its longevity. I will come to that later. The carvers, most of the memorials are limestone and a few sandstone, and then there's later 20th century black marble additions. Burials are restricted now in that cemetery, just to people who have traditional plots there. There's a couple of recumbent slabs, chest tomb and a single vaulted tomb. One carver in particular is Keane from Ballysimon, and he inscribes it as Keane Ballysimon Feasit. There's some copperplate script on a few of the stones, and then there's Michael Beery, a carver we identified from Kilduff. He puts his townland on the back of one of the stones, and he did. There's a headstone in the Castletown ruins of Castletown Church, which has the instruments of the Passion, the cock and the kinds, and some of them have sunburst and abstract decoration on the back of the memorials. Some of the carvers, there's a Hurley from Tipperary and Gleason's and Fahey's of Cashel. Doon, of course, takes in about a radius of burials of a radius of about 15 miles, and of course it's adjacent to Tipperary, so that's why presumably some of the carvers, the business came from Tipperary for the memorials. One stone has erected and registered on it. I think that at one stage you had to register the actual headstones with the Church of Ireland. Some of the inscriptions are abbreviated by writing a superscript, and there's one carver at Donoghue who has a skull and crossbones at the base of his cross, and we'll see. I have an example of work of his from Clonkeen Cemetery. And there's a very unusual cross. It's the Catherine Malone cross, 20th century. It's a very strange one. We'll see a picture of that as well. There's a few Latinisms on the memorials, like In Cruce Salus, Salvation by the Cross, Rest in Peace. and then the IHS, the monogram for Jesus Christ. Although we see some of Beery's work in Old Palace Cemetery, and he writes in the back, in hoc signo vinces, which was another interpretation of the IHS. Reverend James Ryan of Clongannew, his memorial has the most Latin. It starts off in Te Dominus Speravi, non confundere in aeternum, and then there's a few with Ecce Agnus Dei. A few with Bible quotations, but not very many really. There's a couple of Gaelic inscriptions as well. The third one there, a Ricket Round on Frim Comba Sin. I'm told it's an Old Irish, and that it means noble King of Heaven, remain with me until old age. And it's on a memorial to a family of really long livers, which we'll see. There's quite a bit of vernacular. Remember, man, as you pass by, as you are now, so once was I, as I am now, so will you be. Remember, man, eternity. And then there's the one, oh, cruel death that we can't deny, that broke the bands was so long a tie. We will meet on another shore, here death itself will break our bands no more. There was also a long tribute by Thomas Ryan of Corlish to his only son. He describes him as a classical mathematical student who was preeminent for a youth of his tender years. As Christian, a patriot, an affectionate son could not be surpassed. And this small tribute to his memory is erected by his affectionate and bereaved parent, Patrick Ryan, whose sole hope is to meet his only beloved son in the joy of eternal happiness. More recently, there's a memorial to Alice Corbett, who was well known for her politics and for her contribution to the Workers' Party of Ireland. A lot of the memorials are, of course, Celtic Revival style. So you get a lot of Celtic knotwork, harps and shamrocks, and of course these look back to the High Irish art periods of the 9th and 10th centuries. The crosses usually have a ring at a junction of the shaft, and it's thought that this was maybe a cosmic symbol as well as being of practical purposes. There's one iron cross in the graveyard. There's one vaulted tomb and one chest tomb. In the Catholic churchyard, there's a few Celtic-style crosses. We didn't just do St. Fintan Cemetery, we also did the Catholic churchyard, the Old Protestant churchyard, and Castletown church ruins, which were also in the parish. The Castletown church ruins, it's a church that dates from the 12th century, and we found burials were still continued on there up until the early 20th century. And this Michael Beery, whose work is also above at St. Fintan's, has one stone there which has the elements of the Passion on it. Now, the Old Protestant church, the burials are mostly associated with the White family, who had the estate just outside Doon village. And the last Newport White died in 1928. He was only 48. There's also a fern and shamrock decoration on the memorial to Martha Warburton, but I don't know anything about her. So the cemetery was like a hub for the surrounding areas. The civil parish of Doon was quite extensive. Family names would be Ryan, of course, Hayes, Fitzgeralds, O'Connor, O'Dwyer, Gleasons, and then local names like Richardson, Franklin, Lonergan. Most Christian names would be John, Patrick, Michael, Joseph, Mary, Margaret, and Catherine. We found one with Tobias. So this is just the gate of the cemetery. This is just, if you just see at the bottom there, you just see Keen Belly Simon is the carver. That was recently restored, and there's nice decoration on top, and it's kind of a copper plate script, and you have the superscript as well, as you can see in it. It's just there. This is the family of long livers. They're related to the people commemorated in that first stone. This family, most of them are in their 90s, and over 100 when they died. This is an O'Donoghue memorial, and just at the base of the crucifixion there in the middle, you'll just see there's a skull and crossbones, and it's sort of in bas relief. This is the only granite memorial in the graveyard. It's a recent memorial. This is again by Keane of Ballysimon, and at the back you can just see there's a full-length cross. This is the vaulted tomb, commemorates the Ryan family. This is possibly a Protestant family. It's the grave of Susanna Saunderson, and you can see the top there, sort of Georgian style. This is probably one of the finest memorials in the graveyard. It was done by Michael Beery, this carver that we've come across a few times there. And it was commemorated, a woman died 1822. And that's the style on top. And it's been recently cleaned, so it's quite fine. This is another stone by Michael Beery, and he puts his Michael M. Beery of Kilduff Facet. So apparently he got his Latin, I think, wrong. But we know then that Kilduff is a townland in Palace Green, so it's just a few miles down the road. And there's Triskel decorations on the back of that memorial. That's just another view of it. This is more of Beery's work, and it's in Old Palace, and as you can see, it's not at all as successful as the first one we looked at. He seems to have got his proportions wrong. And this is another one in Old Palace. Again, it's his work, but it's not at all as nice as the one in Doon. And that's another one where he uses the 4 angel heads and the crucifix again, but it's not really very nice. This one has again been recently cleaned, and it has a lot of chalices and sunburst decoration. You can see the chalices there on either side. This one, it looks like the carver ran out of space. He divides up the word body, but again, it's recently cleaned, and the inscription has been recently cut on it. It's a recent inscription. It's not as old as the decoration on top, which is of 2 cherubs. This is the chest tomb, and we think also that band of Mohirna agus Moia is more recent addition. There's 1 or 2 of the memorials are surrounded with railings. This is the Malone Cross. Commemorates a woman died 1931, and it's a really strange piece of work. It's much thinner than the usual Celtic style cross, and he's kind of got quirky splayed arms on the cross. It's just that there again. This is the Latin type cross, and that has the passion fruit or the passion flower decoration on it. This is kind of more traditional Celtic style. It's faces and circles. That's the memorial to Alice Corbett, the local Workers' Party. These 2 are slightly unusual for the graveyard, that they're rounded tops, and they also have like a little cove that I think you can put in like a rosary beads or a bottle of holy water, a little inset. This one is one of the few with, it's got a little statue of the Blessed Virgin, and we think also there was a headstone to that memorial. There wasn't, or a footstone. There wasn't that many footstones in the graveyard. This memorial, as you can see, it's weathering. I think, John, you said it's iron oxide. Is it, John? That's in some of the stones. I think you said. I remember you saying it at the time. It's like seeping, rust or something. This was by a carver from Queen Street in Limerick. That's probably the only other statue of the Blessed Virgin. It's fallen, and it's not. 1 minute. Okay. This is the one that says that it was erected and registered by the family, so they had to register that that with the Church of Ireland. That's a recent burial. It's just to give you an idea of the sort of tributes that were paid. It was just to a young girl. She was 12. She was killed in a car accident. That's the cross, Iron Cross. This again, it's kind of Celtic style, but it has the passion flower decoration on it. That's just a view of the graveyard. Again, another Celtic style cross. This lovely one, it's we call it the Lysett Cross. It was made in Glasnevin in Dublin, so of course it's marble, so it's lovely. That's again Celtic style. They're all the same. That's the Latin cross. You can just see the passion flower decoration on top. That's the Ryan cross that has the most Latin on it. He was Reverend James Ryan, and actually at the base of it is quite unsteady. The earth is kind of worn away from the base. This is just a recent memorial to somebody who had no family, and it was erected by Foss because he worked with Foss in Doon. This is an O'Donoghue memorial, the O'Donoghue that did the skull and crossbones one at the very beginning. This is down in Clonkeene, and you can see there's very lovely decoration on top. It's just beside the door of Clonkeene Church. And this also claims that there's graves registered to the left and right of this stone for the family. This is O'Donoghue's work again in Old Palace, and you can see he's using the same angels that Beery used. And that's the back in Hoc Signo Vensis. That's Castletown Church, the ruins in the south of the parish of Doon. And this is the Beery down there. It's got the crucifixion and the elements of the Passion are carved in it. That's another one from there. And that's an early one, I think you called them field monuments, John. Was it the early ones before the, before kind of the, the period of when stones became affordable in cemeteries. That's the Protestant church in Doon, and this is the one with the fern and shamrock decoration on top. There's only about 4 memorials there, and they're flat on the ground. The church is now closed, and it's even closed as a restaurant again. It's recently closed. One of them has the inscription on the curb, and that's it. Okay, I was a bit sure there a bit, but okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you very much.